Righty guys, welcome to another video. Today we're here with Crago. We're going to talk shoes. He is the expert on shoes, so pretty excited to dive into a lot more detail that we go to on my channel, because I think he knows a little bit more about the specifics, plate angles, different types of foams and whatnot. So Thanks for hopping on the channel as usual. But for the people that are living under a rock, introduce yourself a little bit on what you do.
My name is Jack. I live up on a farm about 2 hours north of Perth, but I'm down here for uni. I run an Instagram channel called Jog on Crago, which has shoe reviews, running content, and also a YouTube channel as well. Most of the time I'm training for marathons, half marathons, but lately I've been training for 5 and 10. Yeah, shoes is a massive part of it.
And I thought we'd keep this video quite unstructured, more conversational sort of thing, so I'll let Crago take the combo wherever he wants to as well later on. I might have a few questions just because I'm curious to know more about shoes as well. But I thought we would start a little more in the daily trainer kind of side.
Yep.
And I do know that EVA foam has been around for a long time, but I know we're starting with daily trainers, but how does that compare to PIBA and whatnot?
Racing foams, yeah. So EVA has been around for, I think it's about 50 years now. I think Brooks came up with it in like the 70s. Decent foam, durable, like it's fairly responsive. You can tune it to be quite good as well. Like now you have shoes which have like nitrogen infused EVAs and they make them super critically. But now we're kind of moving into an era of super foams such as TPEE, which is the Light Strike Pro foam from Adidas, and aliphatic TPUs, which you'll see in the Fast R3, but also moving into their training shoes as well. And then we've also got the classic, which is PIBA, which I guess Nike kind of pioneered with Zoom X. So they're more kind of lightweight, more snappy, more responsive. Maybe in some cases not as durable because they have been tuned to be more compressive, more compliant. But when put into a daily training package like with the Evo SL, you can get a really nice responsive ride that does last as well. I think TPEE, in my opinion, is probably the best training foam that we have on the market right now, in terms of like balancing out the structure, the responsiveness, the lightweight feel. And then I think TPU is going to be creeping into things pretty soon as well. But these two foams, I would say, are kind of market leaders in the training, but also racing space as well.
Yeah. It's pretty cool because for a while everyone was talking about PIBA, but now there's a little more diversity in racing shoe foams as well.
It's pretty interesting. Like lately, like for a while, TPEE was kind of creeping in as like the most exciting foam. Aliphatic TPUs getting chatted about more because of the Fast R3. But then I do think PIBA is kind of creeping slowly back into the conversation around those kind of hyperlight racing shoes. So like there's shoes along the lines of the Evo Pro 1, which is also from Adidas, like the Miro Nude from 361 Degrees. And a few brands are kind of experimenting with super critical PIBA. So taking the standard PIBA and then kind of airing it out even more. And that is kind of being able to be a little bit more, I guess, changeable, so they can get it to a lighter state, bouncier, than some of the other foams. So it's kind of like TPE and TPU were taking over, but PIBA could still have a place in terms of going super, super light, like 120, 130 grams, which is, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, shoes are getting super light nowadays as well.
It's crazy.
And I love how we've already got distracted and talked about racing shoes. I guess there is a lot of like overlap and comparison. So we're probably going to talk about racing shoes a fair amount, even in the daily trainer section. But let's talk a little bit for the viewers that are looking for daily trainers. What sort of stuff do you look at? Because on my channel, I usually just talk about trying to vary up the flexibility, softness, and drop. But a lot of people are starting to understand that, at least my viewers. But do you have anything to add on, like what else is good to look out for in a daily trainer?
Yeah, I think I'm on a pretty similar page. Like I'm always just looking for like variation in the load. I like a lightweight shoe as well. I think that's always just fun. It's more enjoyable. But yeah, if I can vary up between shoes which are, you know, rocketed and unrocketed, lower stacked, higher stacked, soft and firm. So like my classic rotation, I think I've got the Neo Zen in here. My rotation right now would be between something like these three shoes for daily training. So you have the Evo SL, which is a kind of firmer, more gutsy, responsive, but also very rocketed shoe. And then I have the Neo Zen, which is soft, very, very flexible, more nimble. And then I would have something like the Boston, which is a bit more stiff, bit more kind of flat through the forefoot, and kind of encourages me to get up and, I guess, I don't know, just attack the pace a little bit more at the end of my daily training runs. So that's kind of how like I'll look for the difference in experience between the daily trainers, and I guess the plates and the foams are all going to play into that quite nicely.
And I used to talk about rockers a lot when I used to work at a running shoe store, because we get referrals from podiatrists and they want like a meta rocker at the front and whatnot for certain conditions. But tell us more about rocker geometry, maybe for the viewers that don't really understand.
Well, a rocker geometry has been like it's part of shoes now for like 4 or 5 years. Obviously Hoka probably starting off, I think you'd credit it. Pretty much just the foam tapers away from the midsole as you get to toe off. That can happen either underneath the shoe, but you can also get what's called toe spring. So the midsole kind of points upwards a little bit. So you get this sensation of it, like falling away, rolling you through. The main thing that that's going to do is offload the ankle joint, offload the calves and Achilles. If I've ever got a flared up Achilles or, sore calves, this is the kind of shoe that I'll lean towards. Whereas something which is, relatively flatter, like a Boston, you do feel it a little bit more through the kind of lower limb in my experience. So oftentimes people with sore calves, Achilles problems, or especially if they don't have the kind of flexibility through their toes, a rockered shoe like an Evo SL or the classic is like a Hoka Bondi, that's the kind of shoe that people will be recommended to offload that, I suppose.
100%. I know the Evo SL is a big talking point on YouTube right now, like a lot of people love it and whatnot. You said you kind of use it more for daily training, but do you ever take it up to threshold workouts and stuff as well, or do you just have better shoes for that?
I think I have better shoes for that. I can definitely understand why people use it, and I think like if you're not completely spoilt for choice, then absolutely go for it, because it's $240. It's fantastic value. But for myself, I do enjoy a bit more stiffness, and I do enjoy a bit more of a flat feeling for my speedier shoes. So even though the Boston 12, like the Boston 13, sorry, the comparison is going to be quite unfavorable because this is a little bit heavier. It hasn't got as much of the nice foam. Because it's got a bit more stiffness, because it's flatter, I feel like I can kind of feel the ground a little bit more and kind of attack the pace. Whereas with the rocker here, I feel like I kind of get caught in that motion for a little bit longer than I want, maybe spending a bit more time on the road than I want. So more of a personal preference thing. I could use it for threshold if I really wanted to, or really had to. I would take this on a holiday, no worries. But I think it's more of a preference thing. I just like a bit more flat and stiff.
I used to run in heavier shoes as well, like the Bondi back in the day and whatnot, but I think we're so sport for choice with lighter shoes now. Like I can't go back to heavier shoes now as well.
I'm a similar page. Like I feel like if I can get something for 230, 240 grams, there's just not a chance, unless the foam is really good in like a 300 gram shoe, there's not a chance that I'm going to be running around in that when you just feel so much more nimble. I feel like stride comes together much nicer. Lightweight.
It's also worth mentioning that because the foams have become so good, maybe part of it's like the nitrogen infused foam and obviously other tech, but you can get really high stack shoes that are actually still fairly light nowadays, which is awesome. So you can still get that diversity of lower profile, closer to the ground, and also higher stack. But they're both light. So
there's so many. There's no longer like stack comes with weight, or like having a bouncy foam means that you don't have stability. Like you can overlay so many different factors into all of these different choices, which is just, it's perfect.
Is there anything else we can chat about in terms of the daily trainer space, like cool features that are used in it?
I think if we're going to chat about plates, which we probably will when we get into the racing shoes, chatting about training shoes with plates is obviously like, it's a bit of a controversial talking point. People are always talking about, not training in carbon, leave the plates for race day. But something I just wanted to bring up is the fact that there are a lot of shoes out there which, even without a plate, even without anything making them inherently stiff, there are shoes which act like plated shoes, like the Super Blast, no plate in there, but with so much foam, it still comes across as if it was plated. So that's just something to think about when you're choosing out a daily trainer. Although it's probably, not a good idea to go running around, jogging around in your full-blown racing shoe. If there are some carbon reinforced trainers like a Boston, I think we've got Cloudflow 5 with a nylon plate. A lot of people will just kind of close their eyes, cover their ears when they hear the word plated for training shoes. But I think it's just important to see that a plate is just kind of part of the recipe, which influences the factors, like the characteristics of a running shoe. So you can have a shoe which is, unplated but still very stiff. You can have a shoe which is unplated and very flexible. And you can have a plated shoe which is still fairly flexible once you break it in. So don't think about a plate as a kind of binary term, meaning, you know, it's stiff, it's going to be used for running fast. There's a lot of different ways that you can use a plate to manipulate how a shoe feels for easy running as well.
There's so much variation nowadays, and even the plate itself could be, you know, completely carbon or carbon infused or
plastic.
Carbon and nylon, whatever. There's a lot out there.
So much variation. It doesn't really make, like, maybe early on when we only had, you know, a couple of choices, maybe it made sense to say don't jog in carbon because it probably meant people were trying to jog around it in an Alpha Fly. But now you've got shoes which are, you know, fully designed with plastic plates to really be the perfect daily trainer and help you take advantage of those awesome foams. So yeah, that's probably the main point I wanted to make, is think about it more as the kind of overall shoe, the components that come together, rather than just seeing plate and, you know, taking that for what it is.
So if plates aren't purely for racing, do you think that there's like a stability component to it as well? Is that why it's included in daily trainers?
Definitely. So I think the biggest influence for plates in the training shoes, I would say, is more to do with controlling the way that the foam compresses, at least in my experience. So racing shoes, you have the plate, it kind of reinforces that rocker geometry. It does also influence the way the foam compresses, but I think first and foremost, it's reinforcing that forefoot so that you can get that nice rocker and a bit of leverage through the shoe. Whereas with the training models, you're not actually getting as much stiffness. I think it's more to do with aiding the compression of the foam and making sure that it doesn't become too mushy, too unstable, which, you know, the perfect comparison is the Zen 2 Vista. This is completely unplated and it is very, very soft and flexible. Some people just can't run in this shoe, whereas the Vista, it has the plate, it has the channels, and you can get a really soft foam in a package which still feels pretty smooth, pretty comfortable, doesn't feel like a mushy mess. So I think the best way I can kind of think about it is like if you're running on just a straight pillow compared to if you're running on a pillow with a book put halfway between it. So once you get down to the book or the plate, the foam underneath is kind of evenly distributed in the compression, so it becomes a little bit more consistent, a bit more stable. Whereas if you're landing on a straight piece of foam, if you land hard on one spot, it's going to really deeply compress and you could tip outwards. Whereas if you've got the plate there to kind of spread that load, it's going to be a bit more stable. Consistent is the word.
Yeah, 100%. I think I totally agree with that. And yeah, it's good that we're giving a little bit more insight than just plate versus non-plate. There's a lot more nuance to it. Anything else worth mentioning in like the versatile trainer category, or?
There's just some really cool shoes coming out like right now. I think it's really good to see brands putting more time into the training shoes, because after all, it's probably what we're going to be spending more time on. I think the kind of introduction of full super foam midsoles is something that's really exciting. So shoes like the Cloud Boom Zone haven't been widely available, but we're starting to see brands put full PIBA midsoles into their training shoes, which is, it's exciting. Before, and still to a certain degree, we're getting, you know, half midsoles with the firmer foam on the bottom, the really nice bouncy stuff on top. But now we're starting to see brands, you know, commit to full super foams all the way through, which is, it's fun. They're punchy, really engaging. So that's just something that's really exciting to see as well.
It is getting a little confusing for me though, because like now we're starting to see racing shoes as well coming out with like half TPE and half PIBA and stuff like that. I think the Asics Metaspeed
the
Tokyo,
new range.
They have like two different types of super
like
foam.
the aliphatic TPU and then the supercritical. Is it supercritical PIBA? It's PIBA
on the
bottom, and then switching it around. A lot of shoes are going to be coming out with all of these different combinations. It's going to be hard to follow, but it's also going to be pretty exciting to be a part of.
It'll add more diversity, which is always welcome, I guess. Well, I guess we can move on to the fun stuff.
The racing shoes.
Yeah. And I'm actually keen to hear more about this, because I've heard a lot of hype about this, and I'm almost tempted to get it.
It's so good.
Talk about this.
Go straight into it. Fast R3, this is probably the most hyped shoe on the market right now. And if the hype is around a Puma shoe, you know it's got to be pretty good. Like, if Nike comes out with a shoe and it's getting this much attention, there's always going to be a bit of skepticism. But Puma have come from nowhere with a shoe which is extremely competitive. Maybe not the most comfort focused, but this does just move so smoothly. So magic here, aliphatic TPU midsole, which is really, really punchy. We've got this long extended plate, which is bottom loaded through the forefoot and comes out the toe a little bit more. The sensation that I have underfoot with this shoe is like powerful. Like I feel like you can put so much driving force into the ground through your stride, and this extended toe I feel like is a part of that. Like I feel like you can push into the ground for just that touch longer to get that really powerful toe off, and it is just, yeah, it's fantastic. It's also super light as well, so I think it's about 190 grams in my men's size 10 and a half, which is, you know, moving in the right direction compared to some of these others as well.
You mentioned that it's not the most comfortable shoe. After trying it, would you still consider wearing it for a marathon, or would it be more of a 5 and 10K kind of thing?
I think right now it would be right on the edge. Like I think gut feel right now I would take it. I do need to take it for a long run first and check out, but I think the performance is so good that I could probably tolerate a little bit of discomfort to get through the race. I did see at, I think it was Berlin it was released at, and a few of the races where they had the offer like, you know, PB and we'll give you this cash reward, there was a fair few people blowing up with sore calves and everything else like that. So I don't think that this is going to be a shoe which works for absolutely everyone, which, you know, is unfortunate, but that's also the reality of super shoes.
100%.
There's going to be responders and non-responders for each model. So that is just something to be wary of. But for myself, like I pushed this for, I think I did, or so far I've done about 20 Ks of running in it all fast, and I haven't had any discomfort whatsoever.
And is it quite stiff?
It is, especially through that forefoot area, extremely stiff.
Because I was wondering about the middle bit here with like, there's less foam, so I was wondering if that's
It's a little bit more flexible than some, but once you get up onto the forefoot, there's absolutely just a tiny bit of flex, nothing significant though.
I really like how they added this bit. I know you talked about it already, but you get that little bit of extra time on the ground, and I feel like that would actually propel you.
I reckon this is something that we'll see from other brands moving
100%.
forward. I think I've seen pictures of the Alpha Fly 4 prototype, and they have something similar going on. It could be something a little bit different just to give you that extra bit of leverage, I guess.
I'm just curious to see how far brands take it, like how far forward they...
just full L feel. Like, L toe.
They might have to add some new restrictions in terms of that at some point, I know we only briefly touched on it earlier, so let's now quickly talk more about TPE, A-TPU, and PIBA.
So I think perfect examples here are these 3 shoes. So, actually, these 2 as well. So, the aliphatic TPU is primarily what Puma are using. So it is really, really punchy. It's also very durable. And there's also been a lot of chat about how it lasts through the race as well. So, you know, some foams like PIBA, or I guess Zoom X is probably the better one.
They bottom out.
They feel really good early on, but they bottom out by about halfway. So like, I just remember the first Vaporfly in a half marathon, I'd get to 10 Ks and the feeling was completely different from initially. But the aliphatic TPU just seems to keep on giving back. So Deviate Nitro Elite 3, Farstar 3, I think right now are the only Western shoes using aliphatic TPU. And I think it's a really, really good material. We're going to see it in the Metaspeed, Sky and Edge Tokyo. They're going to be using it. So I think that is a fantastic midsole foam. Then we have the classic PIBA, or I guess we're kind of moving into a fair bit of variation in PIBA. It doesn't really mean the same thing anymore.
Some are durable, some aren't. There's still variance within PIBA.
I think the Sky and Edge PIBA is quite durable because it is firmer. It's not going to allow as much compression. But then you have some of the more kind of classic PIBAs in the Cielo X1 2.0, which is, it's fun, but it's not quite as punchy as, so like there's just so much variation in PIBA now. It doesn't really work to do blanket statements as much, but kind of depends on how they've tuned it. You can have some which is really, really punchy, responsive, lasts really well, or you can have stuff which is more kind of comfortable, consistent, but maybe doesn't have that kind of excitement factor about it. I think PIBA is still a really good foam, but I do think TPU probably has the advantage overall in terms of holding on for longer in the race. But again, it's just kind of what they do with the PIBA that really counts. And then TPE, like that's probably going to be one of the biggest changes that's come in the last 2 or 3 years. We've seen Light Strike Pro for a while from Adidas, the Adios Pro 4. This stuff is really soft, smooth, but it doesn't bottom out, which again is a kind of problem that we had with PIBA in the past. Just seems to keep on giving back. Very, very tunable as well. So you can have the firmer stuff, which they also put in the Evo SL. You can get softer in the Adios Pro 4. And then you can go to probably the softest foam on the market right now in the Endorphin Elite 2. and you can still get that nice response back from it as well. So highly tunable. Mizuno have injected it with nitrogen 4 as well. So there's just so many ways to manipulate it, as there is with a lot of these. Be interesting to see whether they can do anything with aliphatic TPU, whether they're going to change it a lot. But yeah, PIBA, TPE seem to be quite easy to manipulate and change to get different feels out of them.
Yeah, and I know you said that's super soft, and we were talking about it before the video, but it's also interesting how a shoe could feel extremely soft when you just feel it like this. Like you can see how much compression you can get
So
and stuff.
much.
But apparently when you wear it, I haven't worn it yet, but it feels a bit firmer, right?
It definitely firms up. It doesn't have that kind of crazy squish. Like it does compress, but the rebound is immediate enough that it doesn't feel as unstable as it looks. Like that's something that kind of annoys me a little bit on Instagram. Like there's a few channels that do, you know, like they stand and they do the squish test, and people will be in the comments like, no, it's a no for me. It's a no for me. And it's like, it's going to be a very different experience standing around, compressing it with all of your weight, standing there for your 5 seconds or so, compared to punching into it and actually getting the response. Like it's a bit like, you know, the cornflower slime that people used to make, like the oobleck, I think it's called. Like you punch it hard, it stays hard, or you hit it soft and it goes soft. That's probably the best way to describe this foam. Like if you're jogging, this feels miserable, but once you put force into it, it really opens up and comes alive.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's also part of some of these foams as well, is it does depend on how much force you put into them, where you strike them, and then also where the plate sits in them. So, you know, like some people will find this shoe to be soft, others will find it super hard. Similar with the Pro 4, I've seen some people say that this is firm for them, but then other people are saying, you know, this is the softest thing I've ever worn. So much variation.
100%, yeah. You always get different reactions from different people about shoes. And they can say completely opposite stuff about the same shoe.
It's crazy.
Slowly wrapping up the video. Well, yeah, you work at a running shoe store. I used to work at a running shoe store. And I'm sure we can both agree that the one challenge a lot of the times that we have is trying to get people in the right fitting shoe. But I think people are tired of hearing it from me. But what's your take on what a good shoe fit is?
I would say, well, first and foremost, the most important thing is whether it feels good or not. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we tell you can really influence what a customer thinks about a shoe by what you say at the start of like the interaction. But the most important thing is that they put the shoe on and they say that this feels good. This feels right. It doesn't feel that there's no like caveats to the experience that they're having. So oftentimes when people come into Running Warehouse, I will just get them to try on as many shoes as I can get them to, especially like if it's quiet. We'll try on 5 or 6 and hopefully they'll come through with something which feels distinctly better than the rest. Obviously sizing, pretty important. So many people come in with shoes which are way too short. I've had to persuade people to go up a full size and a half even before. That's obviously very important. And then you're also chatting about like injury history, stability needs, or what they've been told they need from a podiatrist. I'll always ask them whether they've been to a podiatrist or a physio lately, see if they've got any recommendations there. And if they come in with a podiatrist recommendation, just hopefully getting to the bottom of what they're actually chasing, because a lot of the time they'll come in with, you know, some recommendations which are very, very broad. And so it's often good to have that. I think just talking a lot to the customer as well is just really important to get the shoe that they actually need, will actually enjoy. A little bit different with super shoes because oftentimes, you know, it's people who know already what they're chasing. But especially with daily trainers, that's where I think it's pretty key to have a lot of conversation around what they're actually chasing.
I think a couple of things I want to touch on there. Well, first of all, with the podiatry referrals, this is a little bit of a hot take, but podiatrists, a lot of them might have not worked at a running shoe store. They might have not tried every single shoe. So I actually personally prefer it when they give more of a characteristic that they're looking for. So obviously, because this person has a certain condition, please find a rockered shoe or you know, stiff shoe to aid this, rather than like a really specific shoe. Because like you don't want to go against what a podiatrist says when you're working at a running shoe store. So it makes it harder for us because we have to stick to that one shoe. And then if you don't have that size, or if they don't like the color, it's over there.
And a lot of times they fixate on that one model. If it doesn't say Bondi on the side, they're not going to buy it. But like,
it's also understandable for the customer though. But
adding on to that as well, like I can understand why it's tough to be a podiatrist and get the right shoe for the person, because you know, you could send them to a shoe where either of us are working and we could interpret what they actually want, you know, rockered, stiff, reasonably stable, wider last, higher volume fit, anything like that. We can interpret that. But there are a few, I'm not going to name any names, but there are a few retail stores knocking around which you know, if you sent someone in with all of those, you know, that list of features,
Yeah, they'd have no clue.
they have no clue.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's almost like it's safer to just say, whack them in a Bondi. But that is probably one of the biggest problems, I would say, in terms of customer experience, but also like patient experience, is that disconnect between podiatrists, physios, and running retail. Like if you don't, you know, if you rock up at somewhere where they don't have stock, they don't have the education, and they're just like, well, we have this in your size, try this on. I feel like, that's probably a source of a few issues. But
I've always thought about this, but it'll be so good if there's way more like conferences or nights where running shoe fitters and podiatrists and physios all like meet up kind of thing.
And chat.
If there's more crossover as well. Like in Sydney, there's a guy called Tom DeCanto. You might have heard of him. He's a legend runner. But he's also a top-notch podiatrist. And he knows his shoes because he tries everything. So he's like the ultimate package. But I love it when he refers people because it's so easy. Like he would actually put down models that he recommends, but also write down like the characteristics. And he probably doesn't like make the patient fixate on that one model. Like he probably explains well on how, you know, you might have to get another shoe, but this is one good option kind of thing.
Exactly.
But there's a lot more work to be done in that space, I guess.
Which is exciting moving into it, I guess. So
well, you're studying podiatry right now.
Close. I'm doing the first 2 years of med right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then 3 years of pod to come. So
gotcha.
I can't wait to actually apply all of this knowledge eventually, I guess.
Well, you're going in with a lot of knowledge already, so that'll be good,
We can.
And obviously I'm studying physio as well, so I'm keen to, try and bridge that gap a little bit more. Both of us, hopefully. Because I'd be stoked to work at a running shoe store again one day, because I kind of miss it now.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's so good.
Yeah, you get to work with all the shoes every single day. Cool, well, as always, very insightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I guess right now, I know it's really hard to pick because you have a lot of shoes. But maybe one daily trainer, one versatile shoe, one racing shoe that you're enjoying at this current moment. What would you say?
That's tough. Favorite daily trainer of all time is the Neo Zen.
Right.
This is just so much fun, like bouncy, soft foam, but the thing that I enjoy about it is that it can be soft without being mushy, which is, I'm just so allergic to shoes which are mushy. This is the one shoe which gives me that softness without the mush. So really love this one. Versatile trainers, there's a heap. I'm actually loving the Mark X2 right now. It does have a bit of a narrow fit, which I'm hoping will break in, but that's been quite nice, as well as the Boston 13, but I'll commit to this right now. And then racing shoe, it's got to be this.
I think I can see that coming.
It's just so good. It might not be the most comfortable, but honestly, if I'm racing, comfort is not priority, which is, you know, that's a personal thing. There's going to be people who would prefer, there's honestly people who would prefer to have a shoe which is 40 grams heavier, more comfortable to get them through the race, and that's completely fine. But I think I'm at a stage at my running now where I can start to sacrifice a bit of the comfort in order to perform, I guess.
100%. And I know you said we're wrapping up, but I forgot to mention the Chinese shoe brands part. Like, you're a big advocate of, you know, trying out a ton of different brands, and you've recently tried a lot of Chinese shoes, but what's your quick take on it? And by the way, he has made a 20-minute video fully going through a lot of detail, so we'll save it for that, but, you know, give us a little bit of an insight.
Quick hot take is that Chinese brands are probably doing as much innovating as the West, if not slightly more. They're producing high quality, durable, high performing running shoes. So a couple of examples I've got here, things like the Chowdown Feiyin Plaid. This is pretty much a replacement of the Adios Pro 4. It's got the TPU foam, nice broad, stable carbon plated base. We've got shoes like the Flame 4, which both me and Sota have tried. Really nice, snappy, high cadence running shoe, I would say. Quite similar in feel to a Metaspeed Edge, so punchy foam, really quick, snappy rocker off the toe. And then there's other ones which are moving into like a kind of firmer, more responsive, more propulsive space, like 160X6 Pro. That's probably the one thing they need to trim up, is the naming is so tricky. But there's just a lot of really cool tech out there which you can find for cheap, which I think has always been a bit of a value of my channel, is just trying to find stuff which is good value, because running is getting expensive. So many shoes are pushing towards 400, 420, which is scary. So I think it's good to kind of explore a few options, and this has been where that's kind of led me to.
Yeah, we've been talking off camera about this as well, but like the prices of some daily trainer shoes nowadays that are just boring.
It's insane.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
You can pay less and get like a really good carbon plated racing shoe.
Exactly, which I think is where shoes like the Evo SL are going to do really, really well. And I do reckon brands in the next couple of years, hopefully in the next year or so, are going to try and compete with this with full super foam midsoles, lightweight, because right now this is absolutely ripping it up and there's a good reason for it. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting space, whether prices just keep on getting bigger and people just keep on buying, or whether there is a breaking point where they say enough's enough, we're going to try something different, or whether, you know, they're actually going to have to start competing with some brands who, you know, break that narrative and start to put out some lower price point models.
Yeah, right now in terms of price point, the things that are attractive for me is the Evo SL, the Nova Blast, and the Rebel V4. I guess there's the V5 now.
Yep.
But yeah, those are kind of going off track and making sure that mid-tier price point is still accommodated and not just making everything premium.
I guess it's that weird balance where you don't want to, you know, overcommit and make something which is so cheap that people don't trust it. But if you can give them the right tech and the right package, you could sell heaps and heaps and heaps and make up for that profit, but it just takes one brand to actually commit and do it before everyone else is going to follow, which I think they will.
Yeah, so, this might have been that one game-changing shoe that gets all the brands to learn about it.
I think this could be spoken about on a similar tier to, like, you know, Alpha Fly, Vaporfly style kind of change to the market. I reckon it will make a big difference.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Cool. Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much.
Easy.
Everyone go check out Crago on YouTube and Instagram and wherever else, Strava, all the socials. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like, comment below what you thought, and also maybe give us feedback or your thoughts on what we said. If you agree, disagree, we'd be pretty keen to hear your thoughts as well. So yeah, thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.